Well, it's always a bummer when I finish a pretty good chapter and the one following it is kind of not that great. So, chapter 9 was one such chapter. It reminded me quite a lot of chapter 3, A Mistress Disciplined, because it's almost identical, only the implements are different and the circumstances are different. But either way, it's a very Dido and Miss Florence heavy chapter, and Roger's just kind of there. And as I said back then, I'm here for Roger. I don't really care about what happens to the other characters. I'm biased. Sorry. It's my channel. So, to summarize, a birthday treat. It is Miss Florence's birthday, and she is taken by Dido into the summer house, and she goes in first, and she gets snagged in a bear trap. Yes. On her way to her birthday cake, which has two huge, jutting, thick candles sticking out of it, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, are phallic in shape and size. And it's later revealed that they are almost identical to Roger's member, his organ, his tool. So, Dido, like a fairy godmother in a Disney princess film, just flailing around, ribbons and garlands, and shows some of her shibari skills, and she just throws this together. Florence is tied up, and she gives Roger the okay to chastise her because of her imperfect behavior, what with palling around with Bernice and Miss Florence doling out punishments without Dido's express permission. So they do that for a while, and then the candles get used, which is a yeast infection waiting to happen, but he doesn't remove the candles from the cake. From what I have gathered in the prose, they picked up the cake, and somehow the candles, with as heavy and thick and dense and tumescent as they were able to push both in to Miss Florence's orifices, and while they were doing that, they being Roger and Dido, shoving this cake with the candles into Miss Florence's person, they start eating the cake. And it was described as slurping at the syrupy coups pudding. Just let that wash over you. It certainly washed over Roger and Dido. So Dido decides that the sugar cocks are not enough, and so Roger has to take its place. So they do that, and it's just, Roger taking the reins just never really interests me. But there's a lot of multitasking going on. Roger is holding a birch cane in one hand and, whipping Miss Florence, while with his other hand is frotting Dido, and fingers and thumbs and everything all being used. Everybody's just shuddering into orgasms and all this other shit. So Roger ends up getting tied up in an uninteresting way, and Florence and Dido have their turn with Roger again, in an uninteresting way. But we are introduced to a new character at the end. Grub shows back up. We haven't seen her in a while. So Grub shows up wearing a toga because she is modeling for, what's his name? Mr. Dark, I think. No, the Major. One and the same. So he's a painter, apparently. And Grub is modeling for him. And he sees that Roger is in quite a state. And he just, like, yeah, sometimes those girls get carried away. Hope you took it like a man, old sport. And, just no big deal. But I'll read the conclusion of the chapter. So, Roger is speaking to the Major. Roger says, "They seem to have some devilish pact or bargain, sir." "The secret," he laughed. "Why, Flossie's my adopted, not my real daughter. Dido knows, but Flossie doesn't know that I know she knows, and Dido doesn't know that Flossie knows that, well, women's secrets are complicated things. Usually they aren't secret at all, except in the imagination. As for my secret, I get great pleasure from observing your activities with Dido and Flossie. It is such a lovely feeling to see a woman made happy with such a well-endowed young man, as though I were making you a gift to them. And you are such a decent chap, Roger. I can't thank you enough." We made our way back to the lodge, and the Major told me not to let the girls know that I was privy to their secrets. Like Flossie's birthday, after that vigorous seeing to is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. She must be looking forward to her next one, in a month or two, I dare say. That wasn't her real birthday. She decides to have one whenever she feels like having a surprise. Don't forget to dress for dinner, old man. I went up to my room, my heart glowing with happiness just as my birched bottom glowed. I was considered a decent chap. So, as you can see, it sounds like it would be interesting to read, but I sat and recorded about half of it, and I was bored reading it. I don't know how I could be bored reading it, but I was baffled to the point of being speechless for at least 45 seconds, and I'm just like, I can't make a video of that. So, yeah, some actual plot taking place for once in this story. So I'll be interested to see if the Major, well, I know the Major does show up again, and it's just like, my adopted daughter. Like, that doesn't make it any better. It's still gross, but, everybody seems to be enjoying themselves, so who am I to judge? It's not actually incestuous, so what a low bar. But the chapter 10 is called Prometheus Bound, and I do recall about 500 years ago recording a video featuring some prominent parts of that chapter. And I actually remember reading a couple of parts out of this one too, but one or two paragraphs out of a 25 or 15 page chapter, I'm just like, whatever. So this is hardly my best work, but if you're interested in how the story is going, then that's the best I can do. So Prometheus Bound will be forthcoming.